Round 2 coverage here at Grand Prix Memphis. I'm Brian David Marshall, joined in the booth by Pro Tour champion Jacob Van Lunen, and along with us for the round, Rich Hagon.
Hello.
All right, here we get a look at Hayden Bedsole versus Grant Davies, and this is the mono red mirror, Jake. What is essential to winning the mirror? Is it just I drew the most cards, or is there some skill you can leverage in playing red on red?
There's definitely skill. There's definitely an opportunity to understand when you need to counterpunch, to be able to do race math, know when you need to leave back, a certain number of blockers so that you can use one of your creatures essentially as a gain 5, say to block a Hazoret, and then crack them back for 5 yourself. Doing that math game, it can be complicated, and this matchup presents you with a lot of interesting problems.
Yeah, both players came out of the gate with Bowmat Courier. Grant Davies did his off the Sunscorched Desert, so he's ahead. It looks like he's going to have another Courier here. And gets in for 2. Also puts cards. Yep, gets to put a card under each of them. They're exiled, and then you can pay red, sacrifice that, discard your hand.
So
some new cards.
Albus in chat says, why would you put this match on camera? Well, a couple of reasons. One, when we picked Hayden Bedsole, we didn't know it was going to be a mono-red mirror because we haven't looked at all 1,080 deck lists yet. But just as importantly, mono-red is going to be a big thing this weekend. We believe it could well turn out to be the #1 archetype, and navigating the mono-red mirror, talking to a lot of pros, is going to be really important to the destiny of the trophy this weekend. So we thought we'd take a chance early in the tournament to get a sense of just how to go about navigating this matchup.
And I can tell you other decks in the feature match area that we might get to see this round: Black-Green Constrictor, Blue-Black Control, Black-Red Control, and Tokens are all decks in the feature match area. Also, Grixis Control. So we have 2 mono red decks, but we also have it looks like 4 control decks and a Tokens deck.
So we've got
and a Constrictor deck.
Right, so plenty more action to bring you once our live match is done.
But Grant Davies is on the front foot in this matchup. Got to play first, and also now has just deployed threats on each of the first 3 turns of the game.
I do think, though, that Grant Davies is kind of in a bad spot.
He only has 2 lands.
He missed a land drop, and that's so important. Land drops 1 through 4 in this red matchup, in this mirror. If you miss one of those land drops and your opponent doesn't, if your opponent goes 1, 2, 3, 4 with their lands, it gets really hard to win a game.
Why? Explain why. Because that isn't immediately obvious. I think I have some idea.
Yeah, this looks pretty good right now, right?
Yeah, so the major reason for this is because of how much damage potential comes out of 4 lands. The red decks have access to cards like Rekindling Phoenix and Hazoret the Fervent. That's the big one, Hazoret the Fervent. And if you're able to curve out and play Hazoret the Fervent, empty your hand, it gets really hard for the opponent to contend with that in a racing situation. I'm surprised Hayden hasn't, at least after the Earthshaker Kenra got deployed, attempted to block to some degree, because if Hayden has a land and then can double spell and follow it up with something like a Hazoret on the following turn,
and
he's
so
going to be in a good spot.
When you say double spell, that sounds like something that's a mechanic, but you really mean just being able to cast 2 spells in one turn, which is one of the secrets to getting ahead in a game of Magic.
Absolutely. And in these red games where the match is ending quickly, being the first person to cast 2 spells in one turn is one of the biggest deciders in who's going to be ahead, and that's why it's so important to hit land drops also.
Are you a little surprised that Grant Davies maybe didn't? He's got a handful of cards that he can't do anything with. He needs more lands. That maybe pitch that hand for one of the Bowmat Couriers and look to find another land and a new set of spells.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting here, too, is that one Bowmat Courier has 4 cards underneath it. That's a reasonable number of cards to be working with. And then he also has the other Bowmat Courier, which he could trade in and fill up again if he needs more cards beyond that.
So you talked about 4 mana spells. Hayden Bedsole has the first one, and he plays Chandra, Torch of Defiance here. And interestingly, by the way, also Hayden keeps his On-Crop Crasher back. Yeah,
and I find that really interesting that he chose to keep On-Crop Crasher back instead of choosing to leave back the Bowmat Courier. Oh, so he's using his Chandra for mana. I like this a lot.
Uses Chandra for mana, pitches his hand, draws 4 new cards from under the Bowmat Courier.
And does he have?
I mean, did he get a shock?
Mana? Yeah, his deck plays a lot of things that cost 1 mana.
But, I mean, he could be, I think this could get a little tricky for him. He is down to 8. Lightning Strike goes to Hayden's Dome. He falls to 5.
Maybe he's just going to get there by just keeping drawing action and not the lands.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it looks like Grant may have just drawn enough reach. And this red deck doesn't play, and what I mean by reach is burn spells that can go directly to the face as opposed to having to get attack through some number of blockers with creatures.
Going upstairs, as we say in baseball parlance.
Yes.
So there's Shock. He's going to take that out. Take out the blocker. Now he gets in for 4. He puts 2 more cards under his Bowmat Courier. Hayden's at 1. And
somewhere under those Bowmat Couriers, there's got to be some burn, right?
Absolutely. Some land, some burn.
A sun-scorched desert.
A sun-scorched desert. Right. He doesn't even need to draw a spell to finish this game off. There you see Hazard the Fervent just kind of tucked into a big fistful of cards. Never the circumstances you want to see that card under.
So let's see. What can Hayden do here?
Well, Hayden really, I mean, I guess what he wants to do is kill both Bowmat Couriers and find a blocker. Or I guess he can, and then find a blocker for the Earthshaker. And then hope that he just strands Grant with what he has to assume are expensive cards in his hand and no lands.
Yeah, so a line that I like here from Hayden is to plus Chandra for mana, thus giving him the opportunity. Oh, okay. So if he had plus Chandra for mana, then he would have been able to play his land, play Hazaret. He'd 5 lands to play before the land drop, so then he could use 3 mana, discard a card to his Hazaret, then shock one of the Bowmat Couriers, and then his Hazaret is he still dies. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out. I'm going through every single possible line, trying to see.
Groundhog Day. It's like it's Chris Patello again.
I mean, he may have won a grinder last night. He may have won a trial. He might have to. I don't know how many buys he has.
Yeah, I believe he has 2.
Okay. He's like, what am I facing? What will I be having to bring my brew to the table against? Getting a look at what's happening in the field. You know, again, if you take a look at the feature match area at a tournament, generally it's going to be the top tables. So if you have buys, you'll see a lot of times the players with buys just getting a sense of what's coming for them in the round when they start playing with a perfect record.
Yep, you're watching MTG Launch here at the start of our Grand Prix Memphis coverage. Rich, BDM and JVL with you here for this round. Then you'll hear for the first time Marshall Sutcliffe and Reed Duke. They'll open up the Pro Show in rounds 3 and 5. BDM and JVL will be with you rounds 4 and 6. And then it's the cut. All the best 5 and 1 matches to see who makes it into day 2 with a round to spare. And then the nerve shredder that is round 8. 5 and 2, who makes it in and who gets to eat barbecue a lot on Sundays.
A lot of times you don't. You got to come back for the PTQ on Sunday. You got to, maybe get some cards signed by the artists on Sunday. There's some drafts to get into.
Ginormous pauper events.
Yep.
In London. So the largest PTQ, when they used to run the old style PTQs at GPs on the Sunday, if you got 250 players for that, you thought you were just in this enormous bun fight of awesome. And I think once they topped 300. They had over 300 players for Pauper at GP London last month. Just staggering. And boy, did they have fun. It was a huge room at the Excel Centre. And you could tell where the Pauper tournament was because a vast proportion of the noise in the room was from that quadrant. They were, those people were having fun every single round.
Pauper, of course, is a format where you play with only cards that have been printed at some point at common.
Right.
Can't. If the card has never been printed at common, it's just not eligible to play. You find some interesting loopholes in there from time to time. There is a ban and restricted list, and this is a format that's been really championed by the MTG Goldfish himself, Saffron Olive.
Right, and the professor, of course.
And the professor. I'm sorry, it was the professor. Yeah. Who's really championing that. That's right.
Yeah.
Confusing my mega YouTube personalities there for a second.
Easily done. So coming up, by the way, when this one is done, we'll go on to the first half of the husband and wife duo. That's going to be Sarah Maune. She is playing blue-black control, and up against her is Abe Pfeffer with black-green constrictor. So, wow, that sort of takes us back probably about a year, really, for when those were arguably. There was one GP weekend where black-green constrictor was arguably the deck of the
You
format.
are just so excited about that deck, aren't you?
What, black-green
You are
constrictor?
just so excited to see that deck.
Me?
Yeah, because what card is a hallmark of that deck? Besides the constrictor itself.
Verdurous Gear Hulk?
Oh, my
Or
goodness.
perhaps some sort of ballista?
That might do something in the city that we're in.
Oh, you mean is that so? Okay, excuse me. I'm just going to write a big note to myself here, so that when we. Oh my God, you're right. Yes. So when we get to that match, I'll get the singing voice ready.
Oh, my goodness. So
I'll call Watsy Legal and get the royalties.
Yeah.
The royalty division fired up.
Yeah, if you would, that'd be great. The thing is, I wonder if chat actually knows what's coming.
I'm sure.
I'm sure. I'm not. I'm not sure.
No,
I'm not sure.
Oh man,
I'm not sure they have that much insight into my fragile and warped little mind.
I feel like if I was in chat listening, I would know.
That's
but I also know you.
I mean,
well
you were
enough,
sitting
though.
next to me and you knew.
Yes.
Well, we'll just wait and see. See, so much to look forward to here on MTG launch.
All right, so players have shuffled up. Both players off to a 1-0 start. And Grant Davies finds himself up a game here in the Mono Red Mirror. Did not get past 2 lands in play.
And he played really well. He recognized his role, and Hayden made some mistakes there. Hayden continued to trade hits. He used an entire turn to fill his hand up with cards instead of affecting the board. And he just gave Grant that little bit of breathing room he needed to run him over. And Grant recognized, okay, I'm going to be stuck on 2 lands here. I need to just finish this game real fast.
Do you think he maybe thought, again, that Grant's hand was all like Chandras and Hazarets? And not the fact that it was just like, I just have a lot of shocks and lightning strikes, but I only have 1 red mana, and I can't deploy them with any kind of like smoothness. I have to like take a whole turn cycle off to use one of these.
Yeah, and that's what makes it really hard. It's very possible that Grant's hand there was a pile of like 3 and 4 drops, and Hayden was thinking to himself, okay, well, I need to gain my advantage in terms of cards so that when he draws his land, I don't lose the game that way.
Let's talk about something else for a second. You've mentioned a couple times this idea of knowing your role. This is one of the absolutely fundamental aspects of making that leap as a Magic player, from somebody just pushing Magic cards around a kitchen table to someone playing at F&M or playing at a GP or playing at a PTQ. What is the secret there? What does that mean? As we get underway with a Soulscar Mage for Hayden Bedsole.
So when you're playing a game of Magic, it's important to recognize whether or not you are the aggressor or the defender. And if you are the defender, you want to be playing the game in such a way that you're trying to prolong what's happening.
So as we go through this game, why don't you just give us sort of like an update on where people are and what their role is at each point in the game?
So in a red mirror, generally speaking, the person who's on the draw is usually going to be the defender, and they're going to want to be trying to block in an effort to trade and to be using their turn to kill the threats that the opponent plays, as opposed to playing out their own threats when given that option. Whereas the person on the play wants to be playing out threats instead of using removal spells when given that option.
So Lightning Strike takes out Karizev, Skyship Raider, and in comes the Bomat Courier, tucks a card away for future use. It's kind of like a magic pension.
Yeah.
All right. In comes the Soulscar Mage. Does have prowess, but just gets him for 1. And really one of the hidden aspects of that card is that those -1/-1 counters, where you actually get to deal with some cards that are pretty tricky to deal with, especially Hazoret.
Yeah, the fact that it gives you a way to actually kill an indestructible Hazoret in Game 1 in Red Mirror is very, very important.
Pretty relevant against Adanto Vanguards. Something we saw come up in round one. You
Yeah.
know, this matchup, but not that interaction.
Yeah, it even seemed like it was quite strong against Alenda, the Dusk Rose, if we end up seeing more
Yeah.
of that.
So Pia Nalar comes down for Hayden. 2 tokens. Here is Earthshaker Kenra, and now in with both comes Grant Davies. The token can block, and Grant's happy to just trade his Bowmat for it. 2 cards go off, never to be seen again. The
Yeah, so-
market crashes, your pension dies.
Here, Grant, again, trying to make himself the aggressor in the matchup, but in some ways forcing the issue, because there he was trying to be the aggressor despite being behind on the board. Now, you'll notice Hayden has no hand left.
Yeah, Hayden just dumped his entire hand onto the board, plays another Carry Zev and an Earthshaker Kenra, and is able to get in for 5. Now, what is Grant going to do here? Now, he clearly has to pivot back into the defender role here.
Absolutely, but his life total is high enough where he's going to be able to do that.
All right, plays a Phoenix.
Yeah, the Phoenix is going to be a bit of a nightmare here for Hayden. The problem is that Hayden's going to need 2 removal spells in order to deal with that Phoenix, and that's a tall order for a deck for somebody who doesn't have any cards left in their hand.
Plays his 5th land, attacks with everything, gets a Ragavan token. Ragavan.
It
And-
answers to either.
Yeah. And now what do you do here, Jake? How are you going to block?
So I think a double block on Karizev, as crazy as that sounds, may actually be the correct play.
He's like, no, that has menace.
The other major option here would be to block the Earthshaker Kenra and the Pia.
All right, so the Rekindling Phoenix is going to get in the way of the Soul Scar Mage. There you see the correct token show up on the battlefield. So Pia and Earthshaker Kenner are going to die. The Soul Scar Mage is going to get eaten by the Phoenix. The token's going to go away. But Grant takes a hit there. But he has so many cards in hand still.
Yeah, and there I actually I like how he chose to block based on what's in his hand. The Pia kind of blanks the Earthshaker Kenra on its first time around, and
Gets his own Kenra here. And now he goes back on the attack. I mean, his opponent has
turning
no
the corner.
cards in hand. He's like, okay, I'm just taking 2. I don't want to kill that and give you a
Yeah.
way for you to bring it back if you draw another land and attack me for 4.
Stuart Wright, English pro of the mid-2000s, once said to me, the way you need to understand combat is if it's not blocking, it's got no business not attacking.
that's absolutely
It's
correct.
a really good sort of baseline for what's
Yeah.
going on there. I'm not going to get in the way of your Earthshaker Kenra, therefore these will turn sideways.
And so now here you see Hayden Bedsole is like, okay, well, I guess I need to block with my Earthshaker Kenra.
And he wants to block because he wants to be using,
All that mana.
yeah, he wants to be embalming. And see, I was over here thinking that Grant would be using Scavenger Grounds to clean up, but it looks like Grant has so much action in his hand that he may not even need to do something like that.
No, he's doing it. He is going to activate Scavenging Grounds. He's going to exile both graveyards, so that means the Earthshaker Kenra is gone. And then another card for Hayden. It's an on-crop crasher. So he's got a little bit of, but there's the is that the
I believe it's Chandra's defeat.
Chandra's Defeat, yeah. So Chandra's Defeat out of the sideboard for this mirror.
Ooh.
Dire Fleet Daredevil,
This card's been kind of exciting.
but no targets in his opponent's graveyard. He just exiled the graveyard. Wow. Grant Davis Grant Davies makes short work of Hayden here. 2-0 in the red mirror.
Yeah, he had way more action there.
Certainly did.
Just ran him over. It was great.
So there you have it. That's Grant Davies. So we got that out of the way. That's your mono red mirror, which means we now go on to somewhat more pedestrian magic action, but definitely interesting. Black-green constrictor plus blue-black control. That's where we're going to go in a little while. But we're going to take a break first to get our first break of the round out of the way. So we'll be right back with time walk action here from round 2 in Memphis. Hello everyone, welcome back to MTG Launch. Rich, BDM and JVL here with you, and we are gearing up for our time walk action here in round 2. It comes in 2 parts because we've got a husband and wife duo in the feature match area. Sarah and William Maune. Sarah is playing Black-Green Constrictor against a Blue-Black control list. So that's where we're going to kick things off. And after we've seen how Sarah gets on, we'll see whether the married couple can sweep the feature match area in round number 2. So let's head down. It's actually Blue-Black control for Sarah, and Abe Pfeffer is on Black-Green Constrictor. So here with the call in our Time Warp match in round 2, Brian David Marshall and Jacob Van Lunen.
Thanks, Rich. Brian David Marshall here with Jake Van Lunen. Yep, blue-black control for Saruman. Black-green Constrictor gets things underway, though, with a glint sleeve siphoner. This is a card that's kind of just continually gone up in play value as people have explored the cards from the energy subset of Magic cards.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really powerful card and get out of hand really quickly. Here, Abe actually...
Seems like it's really good in this matchup, too.
It is. The important thing to note, though, is that the blue-black control decks these days have a lot of inexpensive spot removal. So Sarah likely has some way to get that off the table before Abe is able to untap with it. Abe also chose not to play an Ether Hub. Perhaps the Marsh was... Did he play the Marsh first or second?
I'm not certain.
Yeah, I'm not certain either. But if he had played the Marsh first and then played the Ether Hub, then the Glint Sleeve Siphoner could have drawn him a card right away, which would have been very exciting there.
All right, announces his attack step, gets in, kind of has that pause you always have against the control deck. You're like, I'm going to announce my attack step. You know, you put your hands up. You're like, is that okay? Can I do this trigger? Yes, okay.
So Jade Light Ranger, one of the kind of breakout cards from Rivals of Ixalan, seen there. Yes, it's scattered, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, Sarah respected it. She said, I don't want you to explore twice here.
I like how Louis Scott Vargas described the card in his set review, where he said it's a very nice combination of Muldrifter and Tarmogoyf.
Wow. So Fatal Push takes down the Glint Sleeve Siphoner, and now Merfolk Branchwalker comes down, reveals another copy of the Jade Light Guardian, and he keeps it on top. So he's got a 3/2 creature there. He's got 2 mana open, and hey, Rich. No, it looks like maybe we're waiting a turn. Oh, there it is.
Walking Ballista in Memphis. I only got 2 mana, but I still cast the repeal. Walking Ballista in Memphis. But do I really feel the way I feel?
Ladies and gentlemen, Rich Hagon. So now Sarah, she's on 4 lands. What is her answer to Abe's growing board? Now, what kind of board? You know, we talked a lot about the spot removal, Jake. Are there board sweepers in the blue-black control deck? Is there?
There are not.
Okay.
They do not play board sweepers in the main. It's Moment of Craving, good inexpensive spot removal spell. It's probably going to deal with a Branchwalker here. Fatal Pushes are inexpensive. Vraska's Contempts are more expensive, but very necessary for dealing with the larger threats. I actually played a lot of Black-Green Constrictor in the early weeks of the Standard. I also saw that Reed Duke, our other expert commentator, had played that deck in the Standard Challenge on Magic Online. And this is not a matchup that I was particularly excited about, and it's what made me stop playing the deck. So
Fatal Push takes out the Merfolk Branchwalker. Plays a 5th land. Goes up to 4 energy. And then here is the Ranger. Explores, gets an if near dead lands. Explores, gets a, draw 2 cards. There's your Muldrifter.
Yeah. And yes, it's only a 2/1 body, but that just drew him 2 cards.
Yeah, may not seem super exciting to draw 2 lands, but it's certainly better than drawing them on the next 2 turns.
Yeah, that was just a divination that came with a body.
Yeah, there is Moment of Craving, so it's going to take out the Ballista.
Yeah, one thing that's nice about having your opponent do that to your Ballista as opposed to a different creature is that the Ballista will no longer be in play upon resolution of the Moment of Craving. So when Moment of Craving resolves, you don't gain 2 life. you just take 1 damage from the Walking Ballista shooting you in the face.
Do you guys know my secret technique for always knowing what the weather is like outside the convention center?
Go on.
I check for soggy commentators.
Oh my god! Oh my god! That is
An utterly sopping wet Reed Duke and Marshall Sutcliffe have just walked into the feature match area. I mean, they are. They look like they ran into a torrential gear Hulk and got the worst for it.
Wow.
I was like, wow, Reed's hair's looking a little
fresh out of the shower.
Yeah.
They may have swam here. That's how it looks. I'm not even like, oh my goodness. That's something.
So here we see Sarah Maune is resolving a Glimmer Genie. She's like, wow, I really like these 2 cards right here. I'm not going to scry any. Keeps the top 2 cards, draws them. Up to 5 lands, and now she's just got to deal with the Jade Light Ranger.
I'm going to hazard a guess. They're not staying in the connecting hotel with the walkway. Okay.
Ooh, I just learned about the walkway. Excellent.
Wonderful.
Okay, here's Moment of Craving. So, yeah, Sarah has been able to sort of just like between Essence Scatter, Fatal Pushes, 2 Moment of Cravings, just kind of just keep poking away at the threats that Abe has deployed.
Yeah, and now we're at the stage of the game where Sarah's passing the turn with mana open for Disallow, a hard piece of counter magic, and her opponent has nothing on the battlefield. And this is kind of the end game for these blue-black control decks. And, we talked earlier about deciding who is, the beatdown, if you will, who is the aggressor. And in a matchup, in basically every matchup that is not a mirror match, these control decks are the defender. And they need to survive as long as possible. And if they're able to survive for long enough, they will win on the sheer card quality that their deck provides. So here, Abe trying to be aggressive. It's hard to be aggressive with a Black Ring Constrictor deck against a deck like Blue-Black Control, and that's one of the dangers of a deck like this.
3rd Moment of Craving for Sarah Maune.
Oh boy!
Really making that card look terrific here.
Now, is that card terrific, Jake? Moment of Craving.
Yes.
What do you guys think?
I mean, Vicious Hunger is a card that
I love that card.
We talked about old Nationals. The Vicious Hunger is a card that's done some great things.
I want a pre-release top 8 draft with 7 of those in my deck.
Ooh.
All right, here's Walking Ballista. We can only pay for one song rights.
But, the Never Again.
Torrential Gear Hulk comes down and gets to play a Essence Scatter out of the graveyard from Torrential Gear Hulk, but a Lurking Chupacabra comes down. A Ravenous Chupacabra, and gets the Torrential Gear Hulk. So a really nice, thing to do with 8 or 9 mana in play for Abe Pfeffer. Play a threat and then kill the Torrential Gear Hulk at the end of that. And in for 2 comes the Chupacabra.
And interesting there too, because with the Scavenger Grounds in play, Abe can actually essentially counter the trigger from the Torrential Gear Hulk if he needs to. But at this stage of the game, Sarah really, all she needs to deal with is a 2/2. I mean, it could potentially become a 5/5 because of the Heshep Oasis, but
you can do it a couple times because there, you don't have to sacrifice the Oasis itself. You just need to sacrifice a desert. So
that's true.
Those if near Deadlands don't have a lot of other utility in this matchup, game 1 for sure.
Little Bobby in chat says, so flooded, but I can't tell whether they're talking about the game or Marshall and Reed.
Yeah, Abe has definitely drawn all in. But you know what? He did play a reasonable amount of threats. There's just Sarah, who drawn a fewer lands, has just been able to just deal with them one at a time.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely on these turns here has just drawn land after land, and a lot of the earlier lands that had been drawn by Abe were off of Explore triggers. Abe was still deploying threats while playing those lands and keeping his hand full.
Yeah, here's Disallow, so that's 8 creatures in Abe Pfeffer's graveyard that have either been killed or countered. So, it looks very flooded, but I mean, honestly, drawn a decent amount of threats.
Yeah. More threats than lands. Again, because
and
many lands have been revealed off
Yeah, I was going to say 2 of those
Explore
lands
triggers.
are Explorers, yeah. right, Sarah passes the turn. Such a always you always feel so good, even when you're losing as the blue. You're like, go. You don't know what I have. You don't know what I can do.
It really is a satisfying feeling to just always say go.
The feeling of doing nothing, just feeling inherently powerful.
A lot of times you'll hear people talk about these control decks as being something called draw go, and that's really what that refers to. It's like, all right, I've just drawn my card. I have so many things I can play at instant speed, but I'm going to make us play a sorcery here, sorcery speed spell here in the Scarab God.
So good, I even agreed to play it on my turn.
Yes. But in response to the Scarab God coming down, Abe Pfeffer is going to use the Scavenging Grounds. Doesn't sacrifice the Scavenging Grounds either. Sacrifice the Hash Up Oasis to do that, and is not going to let the Scarab God have any fodder. Still have to deal with that 4/4 in play. And by the way, with the Scavenging Grounds still in play, that means if Abe can figure out a way to get that Scarab God to die, can activate Scavenging Grounds again and make sure it doesn't come back.
That's absolutely true, and that's an important thing to do there. Sarah forced the issue there with Abe, forcing him to do that because she waited until she had access to 9 mana before she cast that Scarab God, and this is kind of an important number in this standard format, and
Okay.
I'd like to talk about.
Please.
When you're playing one of these blue-black control decks with Scarab God, you often want to wait until you get to 9 mana before you cast it, because that way, when your opponent goes to Vraska's Contempt your Scarab God, you're able to use Scarab God to target, oftentimes, another Scarab God, and then choose to keep the copy that they're not targeting with the Vraska's Contempt, and you end up chaining off with Scarab Gods and being resistant to removal. So I imagine over the course of this weekend, we're going to see a lot of people wait till they have 9 lands in play before they cast that.
So we talked about Abe Pfeffer
Scarab
being
God.
flooded, by the way, but you know what? He's putting those lands to good use. We already saw the Scavenging Grounds take care of huge graveyard from Sarah Maune. Now, using an If Near Deadlands to put 2 counters on a Scarab God. Going to probably use another If Near Deadlands to finish it off, and then a Scavenging Grounds to deal with it.
Yeah, the lands in this format are not just useless things when you draw them off the top of your library. There are enough deserts, especially in a deck like Abe's, where they start to matter later on. And Abe here, able to use his If Near Deadlands to make that Scarab God just a tiny little 1/1.
1/1, yeah. Still going to have to
Some god you are.
Still going to have to go one more time to deal with it. But it means Sarah can't block with it, because then the Scavenging Grounds would come into play. All right, that's going to be a Search for Escanta. Yeah.
Which I believe is one of... I think it's the only non-Scarab God sorcery speed thing that Sarah does with her deck. It's going to be a while before she's able to flip that, because the graveyards have been exiled, but it puts more pressure on Abe, to be sure, because and now he's fighting against a significantly larger chance of action coming off the top for Sarah.
All right, in comes the Chupacabra. Chupacabra's done a lot of work here, by the way.
The Chupacabra not only dealt with Torrential Gearhulk, but it's also, I believe, dealt 6 points of damage already, maybe 8?
And counting.
Yeah.
Sarah has no blocks here. And I'm trying to get this. It looks like there might be a Verdurous Gearhulk in hand, a Vraska's Contempt.
Yeah, and a Winding Instructor. Abe has a lot of cards that do things in his hand, but he also understands that Sarah, if she's not playing anything and they're at this stage of the game and she's been drawing this many cards, there's basically no chance that she doesn't have counter magic. And if she's just going to keep taking 2, then he's just going to keep getting in for 2.
She just put an Essence Scatter from the top of her deck into her graveyard with Search for Escanta, so that's never a great feeling if you're not the control player.
Yeah, but if I'm an Abe C and she does that, that's when I concede. I'm not even kidding.
So there's Vraska's Contempt. It's going to deal with the Gear Hulk. Deal with the Chupacabra. And now here is Winding Constrictor. Oh boy. All right, Glensleeve Siphoner. Energy Trigger. Get an extra. Because Winding Constrictor doesn't just apply to +1/+1 counters. It applies to all sorts of counters, including energy.
The Winding Constrictor combines really nicely with all the cards in this deck.
All right, so another Vraska's Contempt is going to come down. It's going to take out the Glensleeve Siphoner, giving that card a lot of respect. But maybe Abe is trying to find a window where he can play his Virtuous Gear Hulk and get, maybe 6 counters off of it because of the Winding Constrictor's ability.
So an interesting card to draw here for Sarah, a card that oftentimes may not be that exciting in this matchup, is going to kind of pay off big here. There's just the 1 Scavenger Grounds on Abe's side of the table, and Sarah drew Field of Ruin.
Ooh. Now there's Blossoming Defense on top of Abe's library. Sees that with the Merfolk Branchwalker. Puts 2 counters on the Branchwalker because of
the Winding Constrictor.
The Winding
just
Constrictor.
Bashing in now.
Now, this is interesting. Last card in hand. Wow, another Vraska's Contempt. By the way, those are also... How much life has Sarah gained this game? I think she may have gained 10 life from her removal spells. It's certainly... Yeah, she's played 3 Moment of Cravings and 2 Vraska's Contempts. So, she would be at 4 and have also not killed those creatures, incidentally. Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of incidental life gain. I think last round we talked about the incidental damage dealt by Unlicensed Disintegration and how powerful that is. But the incidental life gain in the blue-black deck is very real. You'll often find yourself in situations where the opponent at the end of the game is at 4, 6 life, and that number would have been -4 had they not gained so much life off their removal spells.
You see Abe Pfeffer doing an exile check. He's like, I know what's in your graveyard, but I want to see what else. What did we get rid of there?
So this is interesting. Now, Abe is not wanting to kill the Scarab God and recharge it. Happy to have this big trampler in play. But now, Sarah, with a ton of mana at her disposal, will have access to a flipped Search for Azcanta. So Azcanta the Sunken Ruin entering the battlefield, a Scarab God on defense.
It's still a 1/1 Scarab God on defense the first time around.
Oh, yeah, but you're excited to jump with it because it'll come back.
All right. So she counts up her Search for Azcanta graveyard. Yep, that's going. That's a land. That's going to the yard. Yep, that's 7. Transform it. Now she can tap that, pay 3 mana, and look for action spells for the rest of the game.
Absolutely, and this is kind of a win condition, Azcanta the Sunken Ruin. It's extremely difficult to win the game when your opponent has access to this much mana and is able to just impulse for an answer every single turn.
Basically is now she's basically drawing 2 cards a turn.
Yes. She's essentially drawing 2 cards a turn, and one of them is a non-creature that's been chosen from the top 4 cards of her library. Oh my goodness. And I believe a Torrential Gear Hulk is also in the mix.
All right, yep, here comes Torrential Gear Hulk. It's going to flashback Vraska's Contempt. Okay, deals with the Gear Hulk on the other side of the table. And interestingly, we talk about instant speed all the time, but she did that at sorcery speed because of the scavenging grounds. Oh no, scavenging grounds is gone, but I guess worried maybe about him drawing one. And
Yeah, you could draw another copy, and you can't respond to your opponent playing a land. So
yeah,
she now knows that Abe has access to that card in his deck. I'm actually surprised that Abe was able to fit that. I had a lot of color problems, and I kept increasing the number of foul orchards that I was playing. I ended up playing 3.
so here's the Chupacabra, another one, and it's going to take out the Torrential Gear Hulk. But you know what? We're going to just see if maybe there's an Essence Scatter on the top of the deck.
Yeah, just go looking.
Maybe a Disallow.
Oh, look.
Oh, look, I found an Essence Scatter. And Abe Pfeffer's like, I don't want to play this game anymore.
And as if by
I don't
magic,
want to play with you.
Sarah Maune leads 1-0. This is our time warp match, which means none of the shuffling, none of the mulliganing. Do they both keep 7? Looks like we might have 7 on either
there
side.
might be some mulliganing, we just won't see it.
Yeah, so just count up to 7. I think we're there. So here comes game number 2 with Black Green Constrictor 1-0 down. BDM, take it away.
All right, well, Abe Pfeffer's leading things off with Duress. Card now he's bringing that in out of the sideboard.
Yes, so this is a 3 of out of the board here for the Black Green Constrictor deck. A really important card against these controller decks.
Yeah, sees 2 Essence Scatters, a Disallow, and a Vraska's Contempt. 3 lands. So the Contempt probably not going to take that, but which of these counterspells do you target here?
I think it really depends on what's in Abe's hand. He's going to take one of the 2 Essence Scatters, recognizes that they're the least expensive spells, hoping that maybe Sarah will have some mana issues.
All right, she plays her land for the turn, and now does he have a turn 2 threat that he can play? He does. He's got a Murfroach Branchwalker. Oh, sees a Gonti Lord of Luxury.
Oh, so luxurious.
Oh, I hate that card.
Do you? Don't
You love
you
that
love
card.
I
You
seriously
love
that
that card.
There is nothing that makes me more irrationally angry than having my opponent play Gonti and then just paw their filthy fingers on the top of my deck.
Right.
Like, wait, no, those are my cards.
So hijack feels okay to you. Act of treason stuff.
Yeah.
That just feels moderately bad.
Yes.
But when they actually just reach for the deck, it's...
Oh, I hate it.
Oh, okay.
And I know it's irrational, but I really do get... I have this, like, surge of, like, no.
You know you're allowed to do that to other people, right?
I do.
They will let you put that... Well, I suppose not in a Simic deck.
All right, here is a bait Winding Constrictor. Looking to draw out that Essence Scatter, and it does. Moment of Craving dealt with the Branchwalker. But and then there's a Walking Ballista for Abe. And, of course, that was the card that mattered more to him because obviously Sarah's going to counter probably the first thing he plays.
And Abe can start dumping mana into this Walking Ballista, trying to apply pressure with just that card. Recognizes that it's unlikely that
He just goes right
he's
for
going to be able
it.
to resolve anything else. Yeah, I would too.
He has a pretty good idea of what's in hand for Sarah. She's going to cycle a Censor. Finds another Disallow. But here's her 4th land. Comes into play tapped. So not going to be able to Vraska's Contempt this turn.
And interesting that Abe did not add a counter that turn.
Well, he ended it. He added it during his main, during his attack step last turn.
Yeah.
So this turn, he's deciding he wants to do something else with his lands, and he's going to play that Gonti. And that's going to earn a Disallow for sure from Sarah.
So he is attempting to get the counter magic out of Sarah's hand.
Yeah, he's just playing creatures as Duresses at this point, right? I mean, he's got to do something. Can't just let her sit on all these cards.
The Real Amino Live asks, Magic, 10 ATP ever coming in the future? Actually, I think there's almost exactly 1,080 players in this event.
Very, very, very good.
So now Abe recognizes that Sarah has missed some land drops. And
Lost Legacy.
Oh, Abe does have some knowledge about. Okay.
Yeah, well, he knew that the second disallow was there too, right? We saw that. Oh no, he didn't know about that one. Actually, we saw.
Oh, you're right. We saw double
that
essence
was
scatter.
That was off the sensor.
Yeah.
She got that off cycling the sensor. All right, passes the turn. Still has that Vraska's Contempt. I mean, it won't exile the Walking Ballista or gain any life because he can sacrifice the tokens in response. And here is a Glint Sleeve Siphoner. All right.
I like Sarah's patience here. A lot of people might be tempted to be really aggressive and getting that Walking Ballista off the table right away. I think here you might want to pull the trigger and actually kill the Walking Ballista, depending on what you have access to. You don't have that many outs that deal with it. You have Fatal Pushes and Contempts, but your Moment of Cravings now are too small because Abe has left that 4-mana open.
Right. So she is going to cast the Vraska's Contempt, but she looks like there's some indecision here. Yeah, she doesn't want that Glint Sleeve Siphoner to start just drawing cards for Abe.
And I totally respect that. I mean, it's a card advantage engine. It's something you need to worry about.
And again, she doesn't mind having those instants in the graveyard. She's assuming that there's going to be a Gear Hulk at some point, bring them back. Although there is a Scavenging Grounds to deal with from Abe Pfeffer again. All right. Are you excited? It's a Search for Escanta.
I was going to say, we know what this is. And out of the deck box, she found it. There it is.
Everybody loves the Search for Escanta. Now in every format.
Yeah.
It's a Legacy staple. It's a Modern staple.
What a great card. It feels, there's positions where it feels like backbreaking, but it never feels unfair.
Yeah.
I don't know how to, the game plays out. It develops, and eventually you get really rewarded for it.
How big an issue is that Walking Ballista, Jake?
The Walking Ballista is becoming more and more of an issue. You need to get something through underneath the shields of the blue-black control deck, and Abe's managed to do that with the Walking Ballista. And now not only is it attacking for the 3 it's attacking for, but it also represents an additional 3 damage when Sarah tries to actually get it off the table. Even if it's a card like Vraska's Contempt, that card will not gain Sarah life. Now Sarah's down to just Vraska's Contempt and Fatal Push as ways to get it off the table. And when Abe attacks and puts an additional counter on, he's not only dealing 1 extra damage with that attack step, but as we spoke of before, he's got additional damage in the cuff.
By the way, Abe used his Scavenging Rounds there to keep Search for Escanta from transforming. Just went ahead and proactively was like, let's just get rid of all our graveyards.
And that actually worked out really well for him because it meant that Torrential Gear Hulk didn't have any action. And there's Sarah playing very, very conservatively, not playing Torrential Gear Hulk with the intent to try to block that Walking Ballista, instead wanting to extract maximum value from that Walking Ballista trigger.
Well, here's Vraska's Contempt now. And Sarah's going to take 3 from the Ballista. Doesn't gain 2 life. But she does have a Vraska's Contempt in her graveyard and Torrential Gear Hulk in hand. So, see, this just makes me sick.
Yeah, I'm going to say,
this just viscerally affects me.
Yeah. And that's, being serious, that's one of the amazing things about the game.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Right? I mean,
Oh, I love that. I love that
thing.
reaction. I love that. I feel that way.
I believe, I hope I'm attributing this correctly, Gonti Lord of Luxury, actually designed by Ken Nagel.
This explains a lot.
It does. And Ken Nagel, for those of you who don't know, has been in R&D a long time, and he likes, within gaming, so-called griefer mechanics.
Yes, absolutely.
Things that do create that response in your opponent. And
bravo, Ken Nagel.
Exactly.
You have griefed me.
Yeah.
Ken Nagel's been with Wizards of the Coast since the first Great Designer Search.
That's right.
He was one of the runner-ups in the Great Designer Search and ended up getting a job out of there and has parlayed it into a very successful career. And obviously the 3rd Great Designer Search playing out right now. All right, here comes Torrential Gearhulk.
Have the brakes been applied in time? That's the question, because she's down to 4.
I believe they have been, though.
So contempt. That card still gets to, even though you've dealt with the Gonti, you still get to play the card that Gonti found.
It's a luxury.
It really is. That's the luxury part. Did you see what card Abe took?
I did not see what
Okay.
card it took. I saw some of the options. None looked particularly strong. A lot of the time, it's really nice to get a counter spell.
I was just going to say Essence Scatter. Being
Yeah.
able to play Essence Scatter out of your green-black deck against the Torrential Gearhulk. Well, here's an Essence Scatter from Sarah. She's at 6. So close.
It might as well be like 400. That's how it feels, right?
Oh, is that an Entrancing Melody?
That is. Now, that's a really, really sweet card. So, Entrancing Melody is X blue blue. It's a sorcery, and it says gain control of a creature whose converted mana cost is X. It's a really powerful card, especially in the more mid-range versions of blue-black control that play a lot of creatures.
Wow.
It's a 2-for-1. And what I mean by that is you're using one card, you're essentially killing your opponent's creature, and you're getting a creature.
And it magically reappears on your side of the battlefield.
Correct.
All right. Abe offers up a Glint Sleeve Siphon. I feel like this is how we started the game. Abe playing creatures and getting something counter. And we're going to get a Torrential Gearhulk here. Oh man, I hope there's an Essence Scatter. Please tell me that's an Essence Scatter. That would be so sweet. No. All right, but Vraska's Contempt from hand is going to take out the Torrential Gearhulk.
Wasn't there a stage in Standard where Torrential Gearhulks got cast and then stayed on the battlefield? I'm sure I remember,
Yes.
Carlos
They're-
Romao and Shodi Yasuoka.
They're
casting
still
them.
playing that match.
Oh, okay, that's still going.
They're still there on the battlefield.
Tied at 2 each.
Yeah. If you're a control aficionado, that was one of the great
One of the greats
great
for
matches.
sure.
Yeah, the finals of Pro Tour Kaladesh.
I can tell you, by the way, that the last match of the round has gone in, so we are into the round turnaround, which
and
conveniently
God,
enough,
yes. Oh. And it was another Vraska's Contempt.
Oh, wow.
Oh no, maybe that was a Fatal Push.
Contemptuous.
Yeah, I think that had I couldn't quite see it quickly enough. It might have had to have been a Fatal Push. Because Vraska's Contempt, he would have had some play there.
Yeah, Fatal Push less than thrilling as far as
Saruman,
cards go.
2-0.
and I can tell you, because we don't have time to show you what happened to husband Will, I can tell you he won as well.
Oh,
it was
excellent.
a Maune clean sweep in the feature match area.
Clearly headed for a collision in round 3.
Well, listen. If those are the pairings, we will attempt to get that on camera for sure if it happens. I can tell you that we are out of time here on MTG launch. That means that the dry trio of Rich, BDM, and JVL, dry in more ways than one, are going to take a little break, and the exceedingly damp duo of Marshall Sutcliffe and Reed Duke will be here wearing, as I look to my right, several other people's clothes. So fashion police, you have been warned as we head back to the booth and just wrap things up here on MTG launch. Thanks so much for being with us. Over 8,000 of you have turned up first thing in the morning. Appreciate that. Rich, BDM, JVL saying we will see you shortly. These two will be back for round number 4. But coming up is the start of the Pro Show with Marshall and Reed. Don't go anywhere.